The time has come. On this episode, Josh and I are going to break down March Madness and our predictions. Next.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Two Pointers podcast. We've been gone for a week, but we are back and we are talking about college basketball. Last night was the NCAA selection show, for us at least, depending on when you're listening to it. And it's the greatest time of the year when it comes for college basketball fans. So in today's podcast, Trevor and I are going to break down our brackets and hopefully do a good bit of arguing on where we disagree on things, because it's no fun if we agree on everything. How are you feeling, Trev?
Welcome back. I'm so happy to be here and be back after a long vacation and no NBA coverage for a week and a half. I am feeling great. I really hope we don't have 68 agreements. I doubt we do, but here we go. Kick us off.
Okay, first matchup on the board. Well, I guess technically the first matchup is you're looking at the play-in game, Norfolk State against Appalachian State.
Go Mountaineers, because we are from North Carolina. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I include that just so you can talk about, go Appalachian State. Congrats to them on making the tournament this year. It's always good to see a North Carolina team do something when a strange lack of North Carolina teams made the tournament this year. I think it was only 3.
Makes a difference? No, I think Gonzaga wipes them off the floor, and I think Gonzaga advances.
Yeah, I was hoping that you weren't going to pick a 16 seed.
Not that one.
But it allows me to right now make the great statement of the fact that all-time number 1 seeds are currently 139-1 against number 16 seeds in the NCAA tournament.
Yay. I still can't believe I remember we talked to each other a few years ago when that happened. We were like, we never thought it happened, and here we are. It's like, holy crap, it happened. And now you're kind of like, it's always imminent. You're always like, I won't spend any more time on 1 versus 16 because we got a couple more to cover, obviously. But I do. My favorite time of the year, Grayson put me onto this a few years ago. Our friend Grayson, Pablo Uggetti is his name. I think it's his name. He's an ESPN reporter. He live tweets every 16 seed game, and if it continues to happen, yeah, it's really funny. I always love watching it. I think it's Pablo Uggetti. That name rings a bell. But he always live tweets games, the 1 through 16 or 1 to 16. So he's just always like, "Oh, could Yale do it this year? Could Appalachian State do it?" It's really fun. It's really exciting. What you got next? 8 versus 9, unless you got something else.
Yeah, let's go to 8 versus 9. These are always the hardest to predict. You got the closest teams together. So here you got Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, and the Missouri Tigers. Who are you taking?
I am taking the Missouri Tigers. I am not confident in an Oklahoma team that finished the year 15-10, just solely on the fact that they've played a lot of top 25 teams. They went 5-7. I've watched them a good amount. I haven't watched a ton of college basketball this year as a whole, but I have watched a lot of that conference. I think Mizzou looks really good. I think they're well coached as well. They've also won some big games. They beat Illinois by 3, which I think is a huge one. They've beat Alabama by 3, 2 obviously very high seeds in this tournament. They beat Arkansas once, Tennessee once. They've just got a lot of good quality resume wins. I think they're a really good team overall, and they can defend well, but they can't shoot the 3 well. That's the only thing that scares me, but I think Mizzou moves on.
Yeah, I was also going with Missouri in this one. Missouri's 4-2 against top 25 teams this season. While, Oklahoma does have 5 top 25 wins, which is something to be said. I think Missouri's 4-2 record shows they've been playing well against the top 25. They've competed well in a tough SEC this year, although not to discount how difficult the Big 12 was for Oklahoma. I like Missouri in a close game. It's one of those toss-ups. Spoiler alert, I think every 8-9 is a toss-up. Well, I think 3 out of the 4 8-9s are a toss-up. Let me bring that back.
We'll circle back to that in a little bit.
We'll circle back to that one.
I'm intrigued to know the next one. Who do you got out of Creighton and UCSB?
Creighton.
Okay. A lot of the reason I ask is a lot of people have Santa Barbara. This is like everyone has the like really pretty with the makeup on 12 seed beating the 5 seed, and this is the one. I can't
Everybody
believe
loves
that's
their
the one.
12-5.
I can't believe this is the one. Creighton, obviously, I think recency bias. Georgetown beating them really bad to obviously win the Big East, but Creighton's good, man. They look tough. They're like one of those teams. I'm like, I feel like they could probably beat like the Pistons on some good nights, but they're just such a good defensive team. I just think they're able to lock down really well. They're a tough matchup for anybody. I think they're just really, really, really well balanced. Granted, obviously, Santa Barbara's there for a reason. I think Creighton's a good team overall. I don't see them losing to a 12 like that, even though that's probably the best 12 in the tournament.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the Two Pointers podcast without Trevor taking a shot at the Detroit Pistons, but
we're not even an NBA pod. We get an NBA.
I like the Creighton Jays. I think that it's definitely losing to Georgetown in a blowout has people scared, but Creighton is a remarkably experienced team. And we're not talking about a tired Creighton team after playing several games in the Big East tournament, playing UCSB, where it's a rested Creighton team playing a mid-major. They can shoot incredibly well. They're mostly upperclassmen with a lot of experience. Yeah, I think Creighton's going to take this one.
All right. Who you got? Virginia, Ohio, 4-13. That's another one that people get weird with the 5-12, 4-13.
Okay, this is hard. So to preface where I'm going for the rest of the tournament, based on Virginia and Kansas, is that I have evaluated Virginia and Kansas, who are both under quarantine right now and don't know who they're going to be bringing into the bubble to play. I've evaluated them both, assuming that everyone clears it and they have all of their key contributors.
As you should.
However, if that doesn't happen, there's a lot of issues. There's no telling what's going to go down.
I thought you meant however you picked Ohio. I was like,
no, I picked UVA. Their defense is suffocating. It's borderline unstoppable.
And I am going to shock you. This is our first disagreement. I have the Ohio Wildcats moving on in the first round. They can light up the ball. I know Virginia's a suffering defense. Ohio's defense isn't stellar by any means, but Ohio's a really, really good, fast, explosive team. They score 80 points a game on average. Virginia scores 68. Obviously, they're going to suffocate the crap out of them. They only lost to Illinois by 2. I look at those marginal games. If that is not you lose in overtime by 40, like that doesn't happen. You don't lose in the second half by 40. Like a team doesn't come back like that. You keep up with them if you lose by 2. That is a good quality win, as well as beating Buffalo twice as well, a team that didn't make it, but did look pretty good in their conference. So Jason Preston looks really good. He's averaging 16, 7, and 7. He looks really good. I have this Ohio team moving on and beating Virginia. As scary as it is to say.
While I'll always leave it out, there's a possibility that teams will come in to beat Virginia that I'm not expecting. Ohio
It's not the one you thought.
Sorry. Dang it, I lost my place thinking about UMBC beating Virginia. Okay. Bringing it back. Yeah. If Ohio's going to do what you said, they're going to have to actually set the pace of the game because Virginia is going to take the 30-second shot clock every time. They are a slow-paced team, and if a team needs to rely on being fast, if you don't come out of the gates hitting shots or forcing turnovers, you're not going to be able to make the game go fast because Virginia will hold on to the ball. They will go slow, and you will lose. So
awesome. Yeah. I can't wait to see if that one turns out.
Unless Virginia's not healthy, in which case I don't know what's going to happen.
And look, and I partly picked it for that reason, I'll be honest, but 99% of that pick was I truly do think Ohio's going to win just based on what they can do better against Virginia. I think they match up against them really well if they, like you said, come out and hit shots and they can control the game. They have a guy that can do that. That's all I got. Who you got in 6 versus 11, the next play-in game here?
Well, first thing I want to talk about is the play-in game itself, because a big thing, a lot of times, one of these play-in 11 seeds has won their first game. There's almost always, I feel like, one of these play-in game 11 seeds ends up taking a win.
Was Loyola last year, or did they? Loyola?
Well, last year there was no tournament.
2 years ago. I say last year because I know we didn't have one. Were they a play-in? I'm pretty sure they were. Don't know. I can't remember off the top of
Maybe.
my head. It's been that long. Like it's been 2 years since we've had a
Because I
tournament.
remember some like big like points like Syracuse making a long
Yep.
run from the 11 in the playing game.
Wichita,
VCU was the biggest. Yeah, I
VCU.
think Wichita. VCU made a Final Four run. I think from the first one of the first ever playing games.
Mm-hmm.
So
Is
they're
that
you need to
is
look
that
out
your
for.
is
So
that your picking Wichita here, or is that?
I think no, actually I really like Drake. I think Drake's gonna blow Wichita out in the playing game.
Yeah, Drake's good, man. I don't have a lot of stats on him pulled up. I just shout out to Drake because they made the top 25 throughout the year, and we were all kind of like, "Whoa!" Right? Um, yeah. Who do
I
you
think
got?
if any of these play-in teams makes a run, it'll be Drake. I don't
Really?
think any of them will, but if anyone does, it'll be Drake University.
Yeah, I don't think any of them will either. To be clear, I don't think any of these 11s are like stellar teams. Now, granted, we'll get to one more that I think is kind of scary that these two are 11 in another section of the bracket. But I still got USC moving on. I think it's a really, really, really strong Pac-12 team, and they only have one player right now shooting above 70% for the free throw line, which could be a problem if they get down in a tight game against like a Drake or a Wichita or in the next round series, or next round game. But they beat BYU by 26. They beat UCLA twice. They beat Oregon by 14. They've beat a lot of good quality teams. Pac-12 has been kind of slept on this year, but USC looks really good, and I think they're a great overall team.
Yeah, and also with USC, just to point out, I think USC has the potential to do really well in their region. I think it's a tough place to be because, I mean, it's tough to be in the region with the undefeated Gonzaga Bulldogs, but Evan Mobley is just an unstoppable beast for USC. He was Pac-12 Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Freshman of the Year, and an All-American this season. And I mean, a 7-footer with that much skill is just going to wreak havoc on teams they play in the tournament, especially if you play a team that's not great in the height category.
All right. Rolling along here because there shouldn't be too many more disagreements, I hope, in the rest of this section. I got Kansas over Washington, East Washington. I almost forgot even who they were. Eastern Washington. I got Kansas. I still, even with the COVID stuff, I think they can beat them even with a half healthy roster.
Yeah, I was going to say Kansas with or without all their guys.
I don't think we even need to digress. Kansas is Kansas. The 3 seed's kind of disrespectful. I mean, I know they had some COVID issues, but they should have probably been, I think, the 2 instead of Iowa, but neither here nor there. Oregon VCU, who you got?
I'm going with the Oregon Ducks.
Nice.
14-4 in conference this season. Only one top 25 game because they played in the Pac-12, and it looks like not a lot of top 25 teams in the Pac-12. Same issue in the ACC this year. It hasn't been as competitive on that side. But I like Oregon. I mean, they're 20-6 overall. They haven't done a lot of losing. They've got some good experience with Chris Duarte, Eugene Omaruri, who are both seniors for the Ducks this season.
Seniors
I
play
like
well in the
veteran
tournament.
teams. I like veteran teams to pull things out. What?
Seniors play well in the tournaments.
Yeah.
They always do. Lastly, who you got? Iowa,
Oh, so you're
Grand
just
Canyon.
agreeing with the
Yeah, if I just say who you got, I agree. There's
okay.
nothing like I don't want to digress on a 7-10 matchup that I think could go either way. Oregon's a better team, I think, just by a long shot. VCU is not bad, but Oregon's another Pac-12 team like USC. I think Pac-12 is underrated. Is Garza going to carry them against the Grand Canyon Antelopes? I think is what they're called. Shout out to Grand Canyon and
What's
they're
funny
awesome.
is, yeah, one Garza's an absolute beast, and could absolutely carry Iowa. The other thing is this is probably one of the most experienced teams in Iowa history, as we talked about experience. There's a lot of seniors who have played, like some of the starters on this team, over 100 games in college.
It's a lot of
You're
games.
talking to the wealth of experience. They're an exceptional shooting team. Iowa may have a 2 seed beside them, but there was a long time this season I thought Iowa was going to be a 1 seed. So yeah, I mean, I'm not picking 15 over 2. It's a
Not
little more
case.
likely than a 16 over 1, but it's not that much more likely.
Now, I will say this: I saw not even a stat, but I just saw something today I thought was funny. Is Iowa teams, have bad luck and don't typically make it past the round of 32, but this is an Iowa team with a guy like Luke Garza. He's Luca Garza. I always say his name wrong. Luca Garza. He's nasty. He's so good, and Yeah, Grand Canyon University, as cool as they are on TV, they're not gonna be the ones upsetting them. So are we gonna roll? We're gonna roll to the next bracket, right? We're gonna just keep going 64 to 32. Is that how we're gonna break this down, right?
Yeah. Let's
All
do
right.
the whole first round, then we'll move on.
Keep rolling. That's right, because this is gonna be a long pod, listeners. Buckle in, strap in. We're already 15 minutes in, and we ain't even got to Michigan yet.
All right, Trevor, who you got? Mount St. Mary's or Texas Southern?
Don't care. Michigan moves on. I would say
For
probably.
what it's worth, I'm going to say Mount St. Mary's, and then
Okay.
Michigan blows them out.
I don't really. I didn't even have a prediction for it. I'll be honest. I don't feel prepared. I'm sorry. Michigan moves on.
All right, to the interesting matchup. LSU versus St. Bonaventure.
Are you asking me?
Yep.
LSU. They fought Alabama really, really, really well. Alabama, obviously, SEC champs. LSU plays really, 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 really well in big games like that. They're really tough overall, and it's kind of disrespectful they're an 8 seed, but they are an 8 seed. It's always close 8-9, but LSU's take care of business in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm going with the Atlantic 10 champion St. Bonaventure Bonnies over LSU. I agree.
Like your mid-majors.
Like it was a big moment how far they took Alabama down to the wire. But St. Bonaventure is a surprisingly incredible defensive team. And an Atlantic 10 conference that some years, I know not recently, but some years has been one of the better conferences in college basketball. They've kind of been your next kind of Big East kind of mid-major conference before.
Mm-hmm.
I really like St. Bonaventure to kind of just surprise LSU, even though this is an 8-9. But, I mean, you've got a not a super experienced team, but fairly experienced. They play good defense, and LSU relies on scoring a lot. I think St. Bonaventure takes a close one.
Also, too, like you're saying about the conference being better, not the last time you're going to see St. Bonaventure. If they don't do anything crazy this year, they'll be in it next year again. I think if Kyle Lofton, Jaron Holmes return, like you said, they're experienced. They're juniors. If they come back and want to play another year, they're going to look good again. Not the last time I think we see them for a while here. I think they're going to be good. I just don't think they get it done this year.
So the next matchup's the interesting one. It's the one where all of these analysts, I think every analyst I've listened to has been saying, this is the upset matchup to listen to. And so, with that being said, the Georgetown Hoyas are not going to move on. No, they're 13-12. Colorado's going to win.
Well,
what did you think I was going to say?
Shout out to Patrick Ewing. I've got Georgetown moving on. I'll tell you why. The March Madness has taught us anything in the last couple of years, or really, quite frankly, its entire existence, because I'm an NC State fan. And the last title they won was in 1983, and they literally won because of momentum, and they were pretty good. Is Georgetown's got momentum? I know they're 13-12, but to just run the table like that and just look really good. Patrick Ewing's a great coach. Man, I recency bias. I hate myself for it, but I think they can get it done. Plus 12-5. It's super scary. Now, granted, this is a really good Colorado team, so I feel like I'm really picking straws here and like really, really having to fight for it. But Georgetown has beat Creighton twice. They've beaten Villanova. And that's it, actually. They beat Xavier and, of course, in Seton Hall twice. But they beat very minimal teams, obviously, with only being 13-12, but they've won some against some good ones that are pretty high seeds in this tournament. So I do like Georgetown, and I like seeing NBA coaches do well, and I think he can really kind of draw them in and I think he can keep that momentum just rocking and rolling.
Hey, I'm a fan of Patrick Ewing, former Hornets assistant for years before he got the Georgetown job. But Bobcat/Hornets assistant. Well, it's going back.
I think he'll get it done.
Colorado was one of those teams like Creighton on their side who kind of got shocked and were on their way to potentially winning the Pac-12 title. They got beat by Oregon State, who we'll talk about later because they're in the tournament after winning the Pac-12.
Probably because of that game, by the way.
Shocking fashion, yeah. But we talked about earlier, great free throw shooting teams down the stretch. Colorado, excellent free throw shooting team. Colorado is experienced. They're very efficient. And frankly, I don't trust Georgetown. They made a great run. I just don't feel like that's going to keep going. Like usually when we see these amazing runs, they quickly come to an end.
Oh, I think they can get done. I don't think they get very far either. I just think they at least get out of this one, maybe. Who you got? FSU, UNCG, another North Carolina team. Shout out, not the handful of North Carolina teams we thought we'd see, but it is cool to see them. Who you got?
I'd love to say UNCG right now because I'm a big fan of Wes Miller in that program.
Yep.
But Florida State.
Florida State's suffocating. Like they with that game against Carolina, I hate to do this to you, but like that was one of the couple of games in the ACC tournament I really got to watch for a long amount of time, and they have this like incredible length. I mean, Scotty Barnes is amazing. They got this incredible length, and I feel like they suffocate teams, and they're only 16-6. Like I say, only like that. I feel like they could have been a little higher of a seed, but I think the ACC tournament kind of put them off a little. But they're really good. They're a team that I wouldn't be shocked if we're in the Elite Eight and going, oh wow, Florida State's like they could really make the Final Four here.
So. I wouldn't be shocked by it. I mean, MJ Walker, Scotty Barnes, Balsha Koprivica, who had an incredible ACC tournament semifinal game against UNC. Yeah, Florida State is very good. It's another one of those consistency questions because that's like Florida State would be much higher than a 4 than if they had been consistent down the stretch in the regular season where they dropped a couple of games at UNC and then they lost to Notre Dame and then lost to Georgia Tech in the ACC tournament final. But Florida State on their best day is higher than a 4 seed, one of the better teams in the tournament.
All right, 6-11. I think another play-in game here. This is the one I was referring to when I said interesting to see two such large-scale teams in a UCLA team, another Pac-12 representing again there, and then the Michigan State University Spartans presented by Rocket Mortgage. I had to throw the plug in because we're not sponsored yet. I'm allowed to say it. It is the dumbest advertisement I've ever heard. I don't think that them or UCLA moves on. I've got BYU. BYU is a good team.
It was really an interesting decision to be the MSU Spartans presented by Rocket Mortgage, but
hey, we'll take a sponsorship.
I'm not bashing it. I think it's interesting.
I'm not either. I just think it's dumb. I just think it's like I can't believe college has taken that that domino finally fell. I just can't believe it, but it is what it is. We'll take Rocket Mortgage if they want.
Yeah, I like UCLA in the play-in. And
agreed.
I think BYU's a really good team. They took Gonzaga to the wire. They were the only team, one of like 2 teams this season who like stood a chance of beating Gonzaga. Yeah, that BYU team's good.
Only thing that scares me losing to USC by 26. That could have, without hindsight, obviously, or without like context, they got blown out by USC, and USC's a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have BYU. I will see if I have them any further very soon here. Who you got next?
Texas
next.
I'm not going to pretend that I know anything about Abilene Christian.
I don't either.
I wish I did, but I don't.
Are they a Texas team? I think are they a Texas team? Was that intentional?
So.
I think so too. Abilene Christian. It sounds familiar. I think there's a high school in Abilene Christian that plays really good high school football. Other than that, that's all I know about them. UConn, Maryland. Anything? What you got? Let's see if we can stir the 7-10 pot.
Going UConn Huskies.
I am too. I don't think that this is probably the weirdest of the brackets in my opinion. This is the one where it could literally be all chalk, or it could literally be holy crap, Georgetown, UNC Greensboro, and Apple. Like it just this could be one of those ones we're FaceTiming each other on that weekend, going, "You see your bracket got blown up? Yeah, me too." yeah. So
I think UConn's a team to watch. Only 22 games this season, so we actually haven't seen a ton of UConn. Yeah, I mean, I like the UConn team. 11-6 in the AAC. They've had some struggles, but I mean, I like the team. I like James
Bouknight's playing well too. Yep, he's been playing well.
Yeah. Again, they play strong defense, and as I say when I talk about the NBA in here, defense wins championships.
Yep, got to stick to it.
Alabama, Iona. So this is a bigger matchup to watch because Iona has a bit of a big name on their coaching staff.
I was going to say he's not on the floor and the starting 5. He's not going to contribute to any balls going in the baskets. So I've got Alabama. They are the weakest of the twos in my opinion, just in terms of I just don't feel like they're really going to. Granted, I think I don't remember a time them ever being this high in my entire lifetime. So it's just crazy to think like, wow, this feels weird to see them. I remember them 8-9 most of my life. So I think Iona could scare them. I think we're texting each other late in the second quarter or second half going, oh my gosh, like this is Iona's team going to get it done. But Nah, Rick Pitino doesn't need
Well, I'm always here for an upset.
I am too, but not
But
215 hasn't
I don't
happened
think
since
it'll happen. I think
2016.
this is the best Alabama team I can ever remember. Although one scary thing going through with Alabama, 1-3 against the top 25. Alabama has been scary this year against non-top 25 teams.
I guess my counterpoint would be Iona's only played one good team. It's been Seton Hall. They lost by 22. And number 2 seeds are 132 and 8 versus number 15. It's a 94% win percentage. And then Michigan State's last loss as a 2-15 was against Middle Tennessee in 2016. Otherwise, we won't see it for a while, probably.
So now to the next region. We're going to the South region, I believe.
The Baylor Bears.
Baylor over Hartford.
I feel like we're going to be doing that a lot with the 1-for-6. Next, the next one, I feel like we're going to spend way too much time on, and I'm okay with it, just for your own sake. But who is the Baylor Bears playing in the second round, Josh? Who are the Baylor Bears? My proper grammar.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah. So everything in me, I want UNC to win the game. Obviously. Growing up in North Carolina all our lives, if listeners, I don't think we've talked about it before. I'm a Carolina fan. Trevor's a State fan. I've obviously been better off. Trevor's a Lakers fan. I'm a Hornets fan. It balances. It's fine.
Yep.
Success and struggle. But yeah, I always am afraid for playing against Big Ten teams, and this has just been an incredible conference for them this year. While Wisconsin may not have done the best in that conference, it's a game that could go either way. I did end up picking Wisconsin.
All right, I don't feel so bad now. I did too, and I only picked them solely because they don't turn the ball over, and that's something that I mentioned, like just my eye test on the NBA pods all the time. I'm so excited that we get to do a college basketball pod finally. But eye test for me, that Florida State game, I know the Florida State team's good, but I feel like Carolina was getting down to the end of the shot clock and having to really force a lot. And it just didn't, I don't have this gut feeling where I really just I want to see a Carolina team do really well, just being from literally having Tobacco Road in my backyard, basically. It's really awesome. But I just don't think this is a year where, first of all, seeing them as an 8, it feels weird. And yeah, I got Wisconsin. They're going to be very Virginia-esque, where they just ring you out and slow the game down. And Carolina lost to Virginia by 12, so I think this is a team that matches up horribly for them, and I think Wisconsin gets it done. Also, last year, by the way, 2019, last year that we had a tournament, 9 seeds won all 4 matchups, which is totally weird to think, but it
was the first time that ever happened. But yeah.
Correct. Well, since 2001, it's been a while. It's been a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, we hadn't had it ever really, but
yeah, I mean,
sucks.
We've talked about the 2 things that I think help a lot, like having an incredible defense and having an experienced team. UNC is not an experienced team this year.
Nope.
I have a couple of experienced players, but otherwise, no. Hope it goes the other way. Hope I'm wrong. But
right.
Tight matchup, good Wisconsin.
You got Villanova, Winthrop.
Nova.
Wow.
I like Winthrop a lot.
Preface. Too. I think they're
23-1 team.
Yeah.
I don't think they've been tested by anybody.
I think the only test they had,
to know if they're good or not.
I think the only test they've had was UNCG, who they beat by 8, and Campbell, who, believe it or not, I lived 30 seconds from their arena, got to see a lot of games for a little while there before COVID. Campbell's not a horrible team. They're not a great team. They're real small. Go Camels. Maybe 3 listeners probably know who they are. But Winthrop absolutely washed them off the floor. I think it was close to 30. It was close to 30. Winthrop.
Yeah, but Campbell's not what I would call competition.
I have Winthrop.
As much as I love Campbell, it's not not proven competition here for Winthrop.
You might have missed that. I have Winthrop moving on. I have Winthrop just controlling it and just controlling the game, push the ball up the floor, high intensity. They're going to get it done. I believe in them.
So we're through 3 of the 5-12 matchups, and you have 2 12s.
Or 2 of them, yeah. 2 of them, yep.
Okay. All right. Purdue, North Texas.
Purdue.
I'm going Purdue.
But
it wouldn't shock me to see North Texas win.
No, it wouldn't shock me either.
I think their BPI at 68, I think, is surprisingly high for a team that comes in at a 13. That's there because they're an automatic qualifier, winning Conference USA. Good defense.
Good
Yeah,
defense. Yep, there it is.
really
I
good
was like, there it
defense.
is.
Opponents only scored 61 points against North Texas this year.
It's tight.
They keep teams from scoring. It's just kind of like that one game. If you hit one of these big teams and you stop them from scoring for that game, and you're playing and you're able to dictate the pace and play your game, you can knock them off. I am going to go for Purdue because I think that's most likely to happen. But that's one to look out for if people are filling out brackets and want to pick an upset.
All right. I have between Texas Tech and Utah State, I have got the guard play of Utah State moving on. I think they're just going to be able to play better against Texas Tech. I don't have a lot of analytical breakdown on this one. They beat San Diego State, which I'll get to in a little bit. Spoiler there. They beat San Diego State twice, which I think is a big win. Colorado State, a couple of decent, and then only lost by BYU by 3. But they've got a really good big man, and I'm not even going to try to say his name. Nimias Quita. He is a crazy double-double at 14 and 10. He does look really good, and I think they'll be able to get it done.
It's funny. You gave a lot of explanation there. I'm going Utah State Aggies over the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So like I told you before we got on the pod, I ran a number of college basketball game simulations to look at this from a statistical standpoint. And Utah State won more often than not over Texas Tech. So I think it's one of those situations. I think Utah State's the favorite in this matchup. It's not just a upset going in. I think they are the better team.
Last thing, unless you had something else on Utah State, I want to sprinkle this in here because this is a really exciting time for the betting scene out there. And for those that may do that listen, I think Utah State's a really good. I don't ever really throw that in the NBA because we don't cover games necessarily like this, but I think Utah State's a good throw in there in terms of value for your money, like we just agreed. In terms of, and I think Winthrop as well in this bracket. I think this is a very good gambler happy bracket or gambler happy section of the bracket. So, who you got next?
Arkansas Razorbacks running wild.
I'm not even going to spend any time on it. I don't see some toothpaste brand beating Arkansas. It ain't happening. This is the one that everybody's like, ooh, Colgate. Nah, it's Hunter and all them in our group chat. Nah, they forget it. Colgate's not
yeah, Colgate's 14-1. The biggest stat is Colgate has not played a single team this season that has a top 75 net rating.
Correct.
So they've played 0 top 75 opponents. So this will be the first one for them. And Arkansas is probably, if you want to see an offense go crazy, watch the first round Arkansas Colgate game because Arkansas's offense is awesome.
Yeah. Unfortunately for our predictions here, there's always a Patriot team every couple of years that just scares people. Now, granted, the last one to do one that I can remember was Lehigh and CJ McCollum, Patriot League. So I'm going to look back and probably eat my words. Yeah, 3J McCollum. I'm going to regret that. I'm probably going to regret that statement, and Arkansas is probably going to get knocked off. But I don't see it happening in my prediction here. Arkansas is moving on. I believe it's last two. Florida, Virginia Tech. I've got the Gators. I just don't think Vatek's the best matchup for Florida. I watched them a good amount this year. As the ACC, of course, living around here, I see Florida moving on.
Go Gators.
Chomp chomp, baby. Next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
next,
no. Oh, no. You were silent for a minute. Oh,
no, I'm not taking any of the Ohio
okay.
State over Oral Roberts.
Yeah, okay.
I watched did you watch the Big Ten championship game between Ohio State and Illinois?
I was watching it.
That was incredible.
I was watching it, by the way, for a little bit there. It was right there before. I didn't watch a ton of it. I did watch the second half. I also watched the Ohio State Buckeyes beat the Michigan Wolverines in Ohio with a room full of Buckeyes fans with my girlfriend's family. That was cool. And it was a lot of excitement and they looked really good. And I think Michigan looked really scrambled, which I think scares me if they, don't get their momentum back up. We talked to them a little bit. Yeah. I think Ohio State's a good team. I don't think
that Big Ten was just deep this year. I wouldn't be worried about a team that looked scrambled deep into the Big Ten tournament. I don't think I'm not saying I've picked this. We'll save it to the end to find out, but would not call it outrageous to see 4 Big Ten teams in the Final Four.
I would not either.
Very much happen.
I think one of the few that I think make it pretty far. I think, or one of the handful that will make it really far. I think Ohio State's built for a run.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our last one to 16, and then we can roll through 32, 16, 8, and 4. Who you got, Illinois or Drexel?
Illinois.
Next.
Yeah.
I always love saying that. Next.
We'll talk more about Illinois as it goes along, but I love Ayo Dosunmu and Kofi Coburn in that Illinois team. They are just awesome. And, of course, they won that Big Ten title this weekend. Just incredible team. I'm glad to see an Illinois team because I feel like it's been a while since we've seen a great Illinois team. The only one, I believe, to go to a national title game was in 2005. And so seeing
Darren Williams
come back. Yeah.
Shout out Darren Williams. Cool. My bracket just disappeared. I accidentally clicked off of it. Who you got in the next matchup?
I'll lead us on the next one. So remember when I said at the top of the pod that I thought every 8-9 was going to be a toss-up except for one? This one's not. Loyola Chicago, I think, definitely is going to beat Georgia Tech. I just don't have any doubt about that. I think it's absurd Loyola Chicago is an 8 seed considering they were ranked 18th in the country and thus should be a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament if we were doing this accurately seeding-wise. It really is frightening for Illinois that Loyola Chicago, a team that should be a 5 seed, is the 8 seed underneath them. Yeah, Loyola Chicago all day.
Well, we're going to spend more time on this one than I thought we would. Believe it or not. The only thing that scares me, and I looked at this really hard, this was one of the 3 games. I've already talked about one of the other one. We'll get one more in a moment. There's only 3 games that I just hovered over. And I was like, it took me multiple minutes to just really go with my pick. And I did pick Georgia Tech. They're real rested. The only thing that scares me is Loyola. They give up 55 points per game. That is not a lot. They will literally hold teams to nothing and will do it with a smile on their faces. I just think a lot of people were high on them because of their name from the prior run. I do think they're a good team. They beat Drake twice. I do agree with you. If they do move on, this is probably the 8-9 that I get wrong by far. But I do have Georgia Tech. But Loyola, it could probably beat Illinois if they do play the next round.
I think there's, to a degree, this is a game that I really want to watch, that I am excited to see on Friday.
Ready to yawn. It's going to be tight. It's going to be one of those defensive
But it's because you've got Loyola Chicago that plays stout defense and Georgia Tech, who is the best in the country at forcing turnovers. So it's going to be
fun.
Beautiful basketball. But I don't have enough confidence in Georgia Tech being consistent, and I think Loyola Chicago is they're one of the better teams in this tournament.
I have a feeling the next probably 4 probably we're probably going to chalk and go. Tennessee.
UT, once again, Oregon State, great run, madness miracle, won the Pac-12, made the tournament. That's it.
We said the same thing. That was cool. Oklahoma State, Kate Cunningham's filthy. Next.
Oh, yeah. Oklahoma State is awesome, dude.
4 seeds.
Kind of surprised they didn't win the Big 12, to be honest.
I know.
They just beat Baylor. Like, they're a 4 seed that really isn't a 4 seed.
Yeah, Kate Cunningham's he's only solidifying the fact that he's probably going to be the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
NBA pod here, too, sometimes.
Joining the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Or the Detroit Pistons. I don't want to see that happen to him. One more shot at Detroit. I'll probably have one more in me by the end of the pod. San Diego State. This was my 6 seed that I wanted to get to. I think they are the scariest team to make a 6 seed type run. I think they're going to make it really far. I'm going to spoil that a little bit. They're beating Syracuse handedly. I think they're a really good team.
So I got Syracuse.
Oh my god. Okay. I want to hear this. I really do. This one I didn't even blink. I didn't even read the background on Syracuse. I watched them enough this year. I'm good. San Diego State's nasty. Go ahead. I'm curious.
So the first preference is on this. I ran about 500 simulations of the game, and Syracuse won more often than San Diego State did.
Nah, this one's.
We're catching a theme here. First of all, this is what Syracuse does. They make the tournament as an 11 seed. They play a non-conference team that hasn't seen their style of basketball. They're 2-3, kind of alternating the 3-2 zone defense that is really hard to get inside on. And if Buddy Boeheim is coming down and draining threes, which he's been doing pretty consistently recently, Syracuse is going to be a tough out as an 11. And the last thing I'm going to put in there is it took UVA a buzzer beater to beat Syracuse.
That I did.
This is a scary
remember.
11 that almost always comes in and is knocking off teams because their style is so hard to play against.
You would think by now that somebody in 20 years can figure out the 2-3 zone, but nope. But I still think San Diego State moves on.
It's a good 2-3 zones, almost unstoppable.
This one, again, I think is chalk next. West Virginia, Morehead State. I got West Virginia.
Mountaineers.
Okay.
I like Morehead State. Just generally, I like the team.
Clemson, Rutgers, what you got?
Okay, I honestly thought most of the time going into this that I was going to say Clemson.
Oh,
I'm actually going to say Rutgers. I have the Scarlet Knights who survived the outrageous Big Ten with a winning record. Yeah, I'm going with the Scarlet Knights. I believe they have a win over Illinois this year.
You are correct. They have a win over Michigan State, Illinois, Maryland.
Win over Purdue, win over Maryland.
Yep.
Those are a lot of teams that I have a lot more faith in than Clemson that Rutgers has defeated. I'm going with the Scarlet Knights.
I'm going to go with the fact that Clemson suffocates people on defense, but they can really, 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 really scare you in the last 8 minutes because they can't make a shot for 3 of those minutes. But I think they can get back on track here. They started the season off really, really hot. Rutgers, the other reason for me too, they are 1-7, top 25. I know they have some of those wins we mentioned, but they are. I have watched them enough to feel like I'm not like overly joyed to watch Rutgers, and I think they're not going to get it done. I think Clemson moves on. Last 2:15, then we can roll through.
Houston.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
I'm going to say, I think this is the best Houston team since the one that made it to the national title game against NC State.
I agree with you, and look how that turned out. Look, it took me 13 minutes to bring up an NC State point. I thought, I'm sad to see them. They're number 3 in the NIT, the not-in tournament, and next, we're moving on. We're circling back to round of 32 for Gonzaga. All right, cool. These I feel like we're going to start rolling through, but I feel like there's going to be some disagreements, but I feel like there's going to be a lot of these if we did agree. I think we're going to have a couple of chalks here at the top.
Yeah. Like this first one. Bulldogs.
Yep. I think out of the teams that are COVID ridden, they had didn't have a couple COVID scares. I think that'd be the only hesitation, but I think this arguably could be the best Smart Few team ever. Gonzaga moves on.
Okay, so Creighton and UVA. I will preface once again, if UVA is all healthy and they're all there, I've got UVA over Creighton. If UVA is not all healthy and all there, I will probably go Creighton.
This is where an audio podcast makes things really messed up for the people's heads listening. They can't see us realizing we have different brackets, obviously, right? They understand that, but they can't see it. Remember I had Ohio? I have them again. I have them beating the Blue Jays. I have them moving on once more. I think that style of play is going to be really good against both those teams. Granted, I think they're going to be tired as crap when they get to the Sweet 16 after playing Virginia and Creighton, and they're going to have run 318 miles a game. But I think they move on to play the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and I think they don't make it much further than that.
Wow. All right. Ohio Bobcats making a run out west in Trevor's bracket.
Yep.
I don't think that. I'm sticking with the UVA Cavaliers and another beautiful zone defense.
All right. Who did you have in this one?
Kansas.
Okay. We both agreed there. Go ahead.
I've got the Trojans.
Oh, okay.
I'm big on the Trojans in this one. Again, Evan Mobley, absolute beast. I think that he will be the best player on the court, even against a Kansas team that's usually loaded. I like USC. I think they're a little underranked there at 6, underseeded.
I do too. Loaded Pac-12. I will say this very quickly: if going big blue blood has taught me anything over the years, there's always
this is not the year to go blue blood.
It's not, and also just if going with the general public has taught me anything, every major bracket has Kansas, just because Kansas is a big team. People always just ride them really heavy. I've got USC as well. Kansas is not going to be. I don't think this is their year. Who you got? Iowa, Oregon, I believe is who we had.
Yeah, I mean, I just talked up Iowa a ton. Iowa again.
Iowa, yeah. Nah, I don't think we have to spend too much time on that.
Go
I think
Hawkeyes.
Guards is nasty. All right, Michigan LSU. See, we're rolling through the round of 32 a lot faster. This is really fun. We're already getting close to the Sweet 16.
We
I'm
made up
itching to
all
get
of
to
our
it.
big points about teams before we got here.
Exactly. Now the listeners can just go, okay, they can fast forward 16. They're at the 8. They're at the By the way, to the listeners, I am not putting timestamps on each one of these. This is one long pod with no timestamps. You're gonna have to stick it out. I'm not doing it. Michigan
By the time they're
LSU.
listening, they already know that.
I'm assuming you have the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, I got Michigan over St.
I
Bonaventure.
will say they looked frazzled against Ohio State. Ohio State plays very sporadically. A team like LSU, I think, could be a good scare for them, but I think Florida State, we'll get to them in a minute. I think Florida State's a better matchup for them if they make it to the Sweet 16. Who you got? Florida State, Georgetown. Oh, wait, you didn't have Georgetown.
I had Colorado against Florida State. And I've got the Colorado Buffaloes going to the Sweet 16.
God. Okay. All right. I've got the Florida State Seminoles. Again, like I said, I think they're a good matchup. I think they're a scary team. I think they're going to be one of the teams that kind of moves on a lot farther than a lot of people realize, probably.
Well, it's once again that I go back to, I think Florida State's great. Do I think they're consistent enough to go a long ways? Probably not. Could they win? Could they? I mean, I don't think the Sweet 16 is outrageous for them. I just think I like Colorado a lot. This is a better than expected Pac-12 this season. And yeah.
Quite literally, I think this might be the most boring of the round 32 Sweet 16 segments here. This is a pretty boring bracket in my opinion. In this section, I'm not a fan of a couple of these teams as I'm not as excited. Let me say, as my next point, I think the Shaka Smart led Longhorns will beat BYU. Make Sweet 16. Texas is back, baby. Is that what we always say in football? Texas is back. They're back at the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I talked a lot about liking BYU, but I've got the Longhorns.
This is the one time where you'll hear me trust a coach. Shaka Smart's awesome. I think they're going to move on. Let me guess. Can I guess your next one for the listeners who don't realize?
What was the matchup that we had?
I have UConn, Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I have.
Yeah, I didn't think we went different there. You have the UConn Huskies, don't you?
I do have the UConn Huskies going to the Sweet 16.
And I'll tell you why I said this is my boring bracket. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 making the Sweet 16.
So you've got Bama.
I've got Bama.
I'm going back to what you said about Bama being the worst 2 seed. And plus, I don't know I can't put my finger on what it is other than, like I said, where I simulated the most likely outcomes. And I was surprised probably as much as you would have been that UConn's just a great matchup for Alabama. I think it's going to be, if they play, it's going to be real close. I like UConn to beat Alabama.
All right.
Sorry, tied.
It's all good. They'll get a football championship probably.
Yeah, probably.
Baylor Bears and you have the Boilermakers. I have the Winthrop Eagles. I have Baylor moving on. I don't think we need to digress. I don't think it matters who they're playing. I think Baylor moves on.
Mm-hmm. Baylor's playing Wisconsin.
Sorry. I was looking one thing ahead. I might have just spoiled that. I have Baylor beating Wisconsin.
So do I.
Cool. I have Winthrop beating Purdue. Spoiler.
I have Villanova beating Purdue.
Okay, so we are. That is our
3 teams that you didn't have getting out of the first round making the Sweet 16.
Yep. Spoiler. I had a Baylor Winthrop matchup.
I'm not confident in Purdue at all.
Neither am I.
I like Villanova.
I think Winthrop could beat them if they play them. Arkansas, I just think that offense is overpowering. They beat Utah State, regardless of all the nice things I said about Utah State.
Go Razorbacks.
And then your last matchup of this bracket here, of this section, the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Florida Gators. I've got the Buckeyes. They can be really sporadic and really, like I said, really fun team. And I think they're built for a long run. I think they beat Florida, even though Florida is a very good team. I think it could beat them, but I think Ohio State gets it done.
Yeah, I've got Buckeyes. Like, if they win that Big Ten championship over Illinois, they might be in that one spot Illinois is in right now.
They 100% are
good. They're might as well be a 1 seed.
Yeah,
Buckeyes.
Speaking of Illinois, I think they beat the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I had Georgia Tech. Obviously, you had Chicago. Do you have Loyola moving on against Illinois?
No,
I didn't think so.
It is going to be it's a fun potential in-state matchup there. I really want it to happen because I think it'll be a fun game. But so Loyola Chicago does well because they have a dominant inside big man. Illinois also has a All-American big man in Kofi Coburn. Not to mention then having Ayo Dosunmu, one of the best players in college basketball. So yeah, Illinois.
Yep. Who you got next?
I don't like this pick that I have.
I think I know what you're going to say. Just
Saying
based
I
on
don't
that.
like it because everything in me wants to say that Oklahoma State's going to go to the Sweet 16. But I've been sticking to this whole analytics and game simulation, most likely outcome thing, and going with Tennessee.
What does your gut tell you, honestly?
Oklahoma State.
Cool. My gut tells me it's going to be a sad day in Knoxville. Oklahoma State moves on. Kate Cunningham's too much for the Volunteers, and
I'm going with my brain, not my gut. My gut never won me a bracket challenge.
All right. And then in the next section here, San Diego State, West Virginia, I have got surprise, San Diego State. I think they're better than West Virginia. I think it's abysmal. I think it's just a blasphemy that they're a 6 seed. I think they're really good. They're going to beat West Virginia.
So, of course, this one we won't have the same because I didn't have San Diego State in this game. I've got West Virginia over Syracuse.
Gotcha.
So no matter what, you have their play style is always good for one upset, but I got the Mountaineers. Last one. Mine is Houston against Rutgers. What was yours?
Houston against Clemson.
Okay. Do you have Houston going to the Sweet 16?
I do not. I have Clemson playing stellar defense against another stellar defensive team in Houston. I just don't think Houston, they don't pass the eye test for me. They have won a lot of big games, but I just don't feel good watching them. I think they've beat some good teams. I think this Clemson team is a lot better than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for. I really do. I think as a 7 seed who got really hot starting the year out playing some good teams, I think this team can truly, this Clemson team, granted they lost to Virginia by 35. I'm pretty sure they had some COVID stuff that week there, but they've beat some good teams in the ACC. I think they're a lot better than a 7 seed. I think they beat Houston.
I've got Houston over Rutgers. I like the Houston team a lot. I was kind of eye-opened by how much they won the American Athletic Conference title game over Cincinnati. I mean, they just ran through them. I think they scored 90-something points. This Houston team scares me. Once again, I'm saying I think this is the best Houston team since the last one to get to the national title game. This is a good Houston team. I don't have them losing on the first weekend. They're going to get at least to that second weekend.
They're plus 2,200 right now in most books, and I think a lot of people were kind of sneakily taking them because of 2 seed. They're really good, like you mentioned. I think they're good. I think they're a
lot of people are weirdly low on Houston. I'm not.
Yep, I am one of them. I think Clemson. I just think Clemson's a good matchup for them.
Okay.
All right, and I think that's it. We're rolling back into the Sweet 16, back up to Gonzaga.
You're gonna have to tell me what your matchup is before you go into
we'll do
this.
That.
So that
I've got Gonzaga beating Ohio. I have Gonzaga beating whoever you have. Gonzaga, Ohio. So I think Ohio's run ends here. I think Gonzaga beats them. Moves on.
Got Gonzaga beating UVA. The teams played in the regular season. Gonzaga won by 11.
Yep.
Gonzaga wins again.
Who you got in between USC and Iowa? That's who I had. You had that as well, I believe.
Yes. Got Hawkeyes again. I like USC, but this is where it comes to a stop for me. Again, really like the Hawkeyes. Luka Garza versus Evan Mobley is a heck of a matchup to watch.
That's gonna be fun. We really want that. We really want that to happen.
But it's like I said at the kind of top of the pod when we were talking about Iowa. Iowa isn't just a Luka Garza team. They're an incredibly experienced and just insane outside shooting team. And I think Iowa will move to the Elite Eight. 1-2 matchup.
Yep. For you at least.
Yeah.
I had.
Yeah, I can tell you were going to say USC.
No, we'll get to that. So next we're doing what? Michigan, Florida State is who I had.
No, you didn't go back. Did you have USC beating Iowa?
I did. Oh yeah, sorry, I
didn't
totally
say
just read that. Yeah, I have USC beating Iowa for all the reasons I previously stated.
What were those?
USC's a really good team, and I can't remember half of them. I'll be honest, but I think USC's going to be able to match up well, and I do like USC just as like they're kind of like my gut team, other than San Diego State being my like 6 seed dream. I have 2 of them, kind of sort of right, but I think USC is a good team. I think they're a really tough matchup for a lot of people. I think Iowa's one of those people. Who'd you have? Michigan, Florida State. I think that's who we had.
My matchup was Michigan, Colorado, but I've got the Wolverines.
Okay, so it didn't matter on your end in the sense that you still had Michigan. It mattered on my end. I have the Seminoles who are scary good defensively, scary good in general in terms of I told you if Michigan gets out of sorts quickly like they do, like they did against Ohio State, Florida State's a great matchup to beat them in a big spot like that in the Sweet 16. I think they move on.
Yeah, I think I've already said all of my Florida State points, but I like Michigan. You've got
They're not the
this
scariest
is a
one
team
seed.
that beat Iowa by 22. That's beaten Ohio State. That's beaten Purdue.
They're not the. I'm not overly scared of them. They're not to me. They're not on the same level of the other one seeds. I guess in my opinion.
Okay.
Since they're not the scariest in terms of, I think Florida State, if it comes down to the matchup, like I said, I think Florida State can get it done. Texas, Alabama. So I had the Longhorns again. The Horns are back, baby. I had Texas
So
back.
I had Texas UConn, and I've got the Huskies moving to the Elite Eight.
Wow, put
in
a
the
lot of
East
faith
region.
in a 19 points per game Book Knight. Look, he's good. Man, Texas.
I told you this feels like, and it probably will be Book Night because the most recent two UConn national titles came from one player just put the team on their back.
I knew you were going to have to
Carried
do
them.
it. Put the Kimba
One
plug
of them's
in.
Kimball Walker. The other Shabazz Napier. I know who they both are. This feels a lot to me like the UConn team from Shabazz Napier's time. And I think they're primed. They're in a low seed, but Napier's UConn team was a 9.
Yep.
They won the national championship. Lowest seed to ever win the national title.
I think the only reason, I think Texas is just really well coached. I think it really boils down to that. I just the Kimba plug and all, which by the way, to the 2 Pointers podcast listeners who made it this far, 57 minutes in, we both have access to our Twitter account that if you aren't following, at 2 Pointers. I was on vacation, obviously, and was not on the Twitter account very heavily, and Josh was retweeting stuff for us. And the very first thing I saw when I refreshed it was Cardiac Kimba against Pitt. So that was really fun.
One of the greatest it's one of the greatest announcer calls in sports.
Absolutely.
It's just
one of the best
just
shots.
like an iconic March Madness moment, even though it was in the Big East tournament in the quarterfinals, I think.
Awesome. So where are we going next? My bracket is all fumbled here. I think we're going to the Sweet 16 Baylor matchups. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who do you got?
My matchup is Baylor against Villanova. And for the first time in my bracket, down goes one seed because the Villanova Wildcats are going to the Elite Eight.
Yeah. Okay.
Baylor's the one seed that I like the least in this year's tournament.
What?
There wasn't a lot of confidence instilled in me by seeing them lose to Oklahoma State, who I have going out fairly early that you should have seen. Trevor's making a surprised reaction at Baylor being the one seed I like the least. But I like the Wildcats. You want to talk about well coached?
They are.
Nobody really touches Villanova in that regard. Well, some teams do, but not with the combination of talent that Villanova has. And great coaching with Jay Wright. And not to mention All-American Jeremiah Robinson-Earl doesn't get talked about a lot.
Lottery pick.
He's having a great season at Villanova.
Lottery pick.
It's like some of these young and these guys that will just go on and take their team on their back in the NCAA tournament that are these big guys that get drafted. I think you see a lot. You also see a lot that teams with All-Americans do incredibly well. That's nothing against Baylor, who also has an All-American in Jared Butler. I'm just giving my reason as to why I think Villanova stacks up against Baylor well.
I'll just say this: Baylor moves on solely because I think Winthrop is just not enough for them. I had Winthrop in that spot, remember? So Baylor's going to be Winthrop.
I agree. Winthrop is not enough for them.
Yeah, no. I've got Baylor, and then the next matchup, I think Ohio State can stifle some of that Arkansas just attack, and I think Ohio State, like I mentioned in every other section of this, that they are built for a long run. They are built to beat Arkansas. I've got them beating Arkansas.
Buckeyes.
Sweet. Okay. I actually thought we might disagree there because you like Arkansas's offense a lot. Cool. That's who I had. Who do you got next in Illinois, Oklahoma State? I think I did not.
I wish I had Illinois, Oklahoma State, honestly.
Yeah. Who did you have again? It was
Tennessee.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Illinois or Tennessee. Who do you got out of that too? I'm pretty sure
Illinois. I love Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're nasty.
I didn't understand why the numbers told me. I thought that Tennessee would be in the Sweet 16. Again, I'm essentially being like, I'm not even giving my personal opinions on these things for the most part. I'm giving what I found through analyzing numbers for these teams. But yeah, I think Illinois goes. Tennessee, I think, is good enough to make the Sweet 16.
I think your eye test will matter when we get to the Elite Eight, Final Four, and the championship. I think your eye test will have to matter some. I know you did a lot of analytic stuff, but I think you will have to have picked some of your eye a little bit in the sense that a lot of these teams you've watched a lot. That if they make it that far, you've probably watched them. That being said, I watched a lot of San Diego State. They move on. They beat Clemson, even though Clemson I think is a stellar team in the sense of how they could probably match up well against a lot of people on the defensive side of the floor. San Diego State moves on. I think they match up against
okay.
Illinois.
So your Sweet 16 matchup was San Diego State Clemson. Because
Yes,
mine was West Virginia Houston.
Yeah, 3-2.
Because I had the 2-3.
I had 6-7.
Yeah, so. Okay. So you got San Diego State completely differently. I've got the Houston Cougars, who I like a lot. West Virginia, I don't like that much, but I don't think they get outrageously challenged ahead of because I didn't have them playing San Diego State. I don't think that West Virginia gets outrageously challenged before the Sweet 16, and I think they get stopped by the Cougars.
All right, Elite Eight, back to the top. I don't
Gonzaga,
think we spent too much time.
The rematch.
Gonzaga, USC. In my inside, I've got Gonzaga. I don't think we differ there.
Bulldogs to the Final Four. They haven't lost the season. I don't have them losing yet. So.
Who do you think I have next?
What's your matchup?
I have Texas and Florida State.
Okay. So you got Florida State going to the Final Four.
I've got the Seminoles in the Final Four. I've got the lengthy, strong, really well coached team. I think they are going to beat Texas as well as, I think it's going to come down to a coaching matchup and the fact that I think Florida State, I just trust their big 2-3 there, big 2 or 3, however you want to say that the total there. I think the 3 best guys are better than Texas' 3 best guys. I think Florida State gets done. They're my, weird 4 seed or higher that makes the Final Four in this side of the bracket. I think Florida State moves on to play Gonzaga in the Final Four.
So I've got Michigan against UConn. And I'm not going crazy. This is where I come to the end of this UConn Husky run. One shy of the Final Four. While I said I think it's like some similarities to those great running UConn teams, I think UConn last made that incredible low seed run in a year where the number 1 seeds just weren't as set apart as these seem to be. And I think Michigan gets the win over the UConn Huskies.
All right, so
Fairly
the Final Four is set in that side of the bracket. I don't even have the regions in front of me, what the regions are anymore. I've got Gonzaga, Florida State. You've got
Gonzaga, Michigan.
All right, and to go fill out the other side of the Final Four, and then we can round it out with the Final Four and the championship, and then wrap this longest 2-pointers podcast ever up, and the listeners are going to love it, and they are. And I have a surprise for them at the end. Or we have
except for the unreleased season preview podcast that went 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's staying in the archives forever. Awesome. So on the other side, I had Baylor, Ohio State. This, unfortunately, I think is where Baylor beats the Buckeyes, who I think are built for a long run. I think their long run makes it to the Elite Eight. I think Baylor moves on. They make the Final Four. Baylor's a great team. I'm floored by the fact we're not even going to be talking about Baylor in this matchup for you.
So we've got Villanova and Ohio State, and it's shocking that me, the one without ties to Ohio State, has more faith in them than you do, because long run Buckeyes are going to the Final Four.
Wow. I am sending this to my girlfriend's father the moment it's posted. And I'm going to tell him
long run Buckeyes in the Final Four. You might want to wait on that.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. I think they could beat Baylor if they make it to this spot. I really do. I just think they're the ones. They're the one team in this side of the bracket where I trust them in this spot just because of how well they've played against other teams in their conference. Baylor, I think it's just a better team. I think they're gonna take care of them. I think it'll be a good game. I just think Baylor's gonna beat them by 5-10 at least.
Mm-hmm.
And who did you have in the next? I know we didn't have the same matchup for sure.
I have the 1-2 Illinois Houston.
All right. Well, I had the 1-6 San Diego State, and I've got the Aztecs of San Diego State making the Final Four. They are my team, other than Florida State. Florida State's 4 seed, right? They're actually pretty high ranked. They are my. I told you my 4 seed or higher. They're one of the Florida State Seminoles were. I think San Diego State is is a good team. Obviously, I've said that for the last hour. They're going to be the team to beat Illinois. I think they're a team that matches up the best against Illinois in that side of the bracket. Go Aztecs.
Wow. So a team I had losing in the first round.
Trevor
You
has
have
making the Final Four.
Final Four. But,
I love March Madness.
At least in the good side of this, neither of us have Illinois making it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
The Houston Cougars are going to run wild on Illinois.
Yeah.
And make it along to face the Ohio State Buckeyes in the other matchup.
We don't have to spend too long on this. I had a feeling, based on how your verbiage has been this whole pod, how you said this is the best Houston team since 1983. I don't think you would say all that and then not have them in the Final Four. That seems kind of redundant. So that, I think, is some of your eye test, like I was mentioning. I think Houston's really good, but I think San Diego State.
I tell you, it was the computer that said that Houston's going to the store. What would you say?
I would believe you. I would believe you. Cool. Final Four on the other side, like I said, Gonzaga, Michigan for you, Gonzaga, Florida State for me, Baylor, San Diego State for me, and you had Baylor. Or no,
I had
just
Ohio
kidding.
State, Houston.
You had Ohio State, Houston. Awesome. So completely jumbled four. So I think we literally only agreed in one of them.
We both think Gonzaga's getting there.
All right. Do we think, going back to Gonzaga, do we think Gonzaga makes the championship? I think the Gonzaga Bulldogs, unfortunately, beat Florida State. I think this is the best Mark Few team ever, like I mentioned 30 minutes ago. They're just disgusting. This is the team that's going to beat Florida State pretty handedly.
Bulldogs over Michigan.
I love how we're in the Final Four and we spend 3 seconds on Gonzaga.
What
do you say?
Yeah, no,
exactly.
I love Gonzaga. Yeah, like you said, this is the best team Mark Few's ever had. It's better than the team led by Shimmick Karnowski and Zach Collins that came up so short to the North Carolina Tar Heels in the 2017 national championship. Slight plug. Now, yeah, but this Gonzaga team, they haven't lost this season. I don't have them losing through the Final Four. What happens in the championship, we'll find out. But
other side. Here we go. This is where we completely have not the same.
We have different matchups. We're going to have two different teams. We're both going to have a different team facing Gonzaga.
Go ahead. I'm excited to hear this 2-2. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's Ohio State Buckeyes against the Houston Cougars. And the best Houston Cougars team since the last one to make it to the national title game will get back to the national championship game and play the Gonzaga Bulldogs, as we will have the West Coast Conference playing the American Athletic Conference in the national championship this year.
The commissioners of every other league are probably sobbing in a bathtub somewhere.
The Power Five is freaking out at this point.
Yeah. Whoa. That being said, I unfortunately have my Cinderella love run to San Diego State losing to the Baylor. I almost said Bulldogs because we've been talking about Gonzaga so much, but I have 1 versus 1, unfortunately. I didn't want to do it, but we've all said this all year. I can vividly remember text messages in the beginning of the year between us and our friends. It's going to be Baylor Gonzaga probably. And I unfortunately didn't want to have that in my gut, but I did pick based on eye test and based on how I did a little bit of analytics here and there, but Gonzaga is going to play Baylor in the championship game on April 5th.
Yeah, now I understand why you were so freaked out when I said I didn't like Baylor and had them losing to Villanova in the Sweet 16. I understand now.
By the way, though, I could totally see that. If somebody it's March Madness, somebody could beat them, and we're like, oh crap, I just don't see them being the first 1 seed. That's it. Period. That's all it has to do with. Cool. Gonzaga Baylor for me. You had Gonzaga and Houston. Go ahead. Final right here. This is the I wish we had like drum roll. I might put some of that, but this late into it, probably not. Who do you have and what's the score? I think that's really interesting.
Okay. So I've been trying to basically spoil what I thought the outcome of this tournament since the beginning. When I've been saying this is the best Houston team since Phi Slamma Jamma to go to the national title game. And what happened then, Trevor? They lost.
Do they do it again?
Yes, they lose again because Gonzaga is going to go undefeated and be the first team since Bobby Knight's Indiana to finally finish undefeated. Close game, they win 77-73.
Wow, that is close.
The Bulldogs have their first national championship. And we can all be happy
Crazy.
Because who hates Gonzaga? No one hates Gonzaga.
Crazy to think that'll be their first. I really can't believe that. Can't believe it's their first. Can't believe it's their first. It's just mind blowing. I have, again, and I hate that we agree on this, but I have the Gonzaga Bulldogs beating the Baylor Bears in a 1 versus 1 really exciting national championship. Don't think it comes down to the wire. I've got 70-62. I've got Gonzaga. The only thing that scares me, and I will end with this so we can get this pod out for the listeners as soon as possible because we have until Friday. It scares me that 76 was the last time that happened. It really does, because think of some of the teams that had the chance to do it since then. The one that comes to my mind that I cannot believe didn't do it was Anthony Davis and the Kentucky Wildcats. That team should have done it. And to think that this will be
in the regular season.
They had every graphic I see has them undefeated on TV.
They won the national title that year.
So then what are we? Am I confused on something like full undefeated?
There's a different Kentucky team that AD didn't play for that lost to Wisconsin in the Final Four in, I want to say, 2015. But okay. Anthony Davis played college ball in 2012.
Yeah, and I thought that team. Anyway.
That team was national champion with one loss, I believe.
With one loss. Okay, so interesting. Definitely got those two teams mixed up because, of course, Kentucky most of my life has been amazing. So it's also late on a Monday night here. But I think it is scary to think normally history repeats itself. This is one case in college basketball because of how freaky March Madness is, that history has not repeated itself. But I do think the Mark Few
undefeated teams are rare because, I mean, you look back to, I mean, college basketball, I mean, outside of college football where it's not as outrageous to go undefeated and win the national title.
Right.
College basketball's only had a handful of undefeated national champions outside of the UCLA Bruins. And John Wooden's teams that just crushed everybody. But like you look at the NFL, only the Miami Dolphins have had an undefeated season. That one hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah. we can end
Trevor's
on
a
that.
Patriots fan, and he just immediately goes to the 16-0 season that they didn't win the Super Bowl when I say that.
Oh, that'll about do it here, folks. It's been an awesome, fun episode of the Two Pointers Podcast.
Gonzaga does it. We're going to see history. Perfect season.
Happy to hear that we'll be covering it as well at the end. The surprise I have for the listeners so we can get out of here because it's been an hour and 13 minutes. Have fun with this, listeners, is that we are going to release on the Twitter page the moment that the pod goes up, our bracket with the password. Obviously, it'll be a public one. I don't know why. It had me set a password. I'll have it public, but we'll have it out there. I want to see a couple people in there, and I want to see a bunch of people in there, quite frankly. I want to see a bunch of people in there putting their brackets in. One good bracket. Winner gets the best one.
It's titled Two Pointers Podcast.
And as of right now, the password it made me create was hoops with no capitals. I think I'll try to unlock that. There's some way to make that fix. I'll figure it out.
We'll also put it on Twitter.
Exactly. Twitter, Instagram, stories, everything. Otherwise, it's been fun. Anything else for me?
Winner of the bracket challenge gets bragging rights and gets a shout out on the Two Pointers Podcast.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, maybe something else. No problem.
Maybe like a $5 gift card and a high five until we get that first sponsorship.
maybe not. Okay,
we'll see. All right. Well, it's been fun. This long of a pod. I have enjoyed this. Glad to have college here ready in the postseason. This has been the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Josh. And we will see you soon.